Yo, what's up, y'all? Man, I don't even know what to say. I was waiting for a while to see if there was some kind of a deep revelatory word I can give to help people or something like that. And the truth is, I don't even know what to say. But I do know that black folks is tired. We is tired. Like, we ain't got no words tired. Like, beyond tired. Especially those who really know the history of America tired. And I was like, maybe there's some insight I can give. And I thought about writing something up that was real, like, articulate and all these, like, historical facts in it about the history of America and the history of liberators in America and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, listen, they don't do nothing in a time where, like, you really, really frustrated. So I just decided to share some of my thoughts from here in Ghana. And even though I'm living in Ghana, outside of my house right now, like, I'm still a black American. I still feel the pain and frustration and the rage from the absolute levels of injustice that's popping off right now all across the U.S. And in the words of Tupac, it's been going on for years and there's plenty more. And I'm not here to point the fingers at nobody, but I do think that we have to acknowledge some greater realities and truths. One of which is we don't have the right to condemn anybody's level of pain and frustration if we're not going to help provide real solutions. So when we see people, quote unquote, looting or whatever, you can chill with all that, talking about MLK wouldn't stand for this or none of that other kind of stuff. Go read MLK quote on rioting. Matter of fact, go to the social media of his daughter, Bernice King, and see what she said about her father. Go check that out first. You know, but the truth is, man, we tired, man. And we frustrated, dog. And I said I wasn't going to point no fingers, but I do think, though, one of the major failures that we've had is the black church. And the reason I specifically point out the black church is because I believe what Stokely Carmichael said, who said that one of the things that we have to believe is we have to dismiss this fallacious notion that white people can give black people their freedom. So I think that after a certain point, we have to stop rallying for white people to acknowledge us, to admonish our existence, to tell us that we matter and that we value. But I know why we do it is because we have historically been in a system where we have been devalued and marginalized by those same people. But on the other hand, I think that we spend so much time focusing on trying to convince white people that our lives matter that we forget to engage in the solutions that we can solve on our own. I believe in having advocates. But the truth is, if we ain't got no plan and we don't have no structure, it's like blaming somebody and asking them to come up with solutions that we already have that's in us. And I remember back in 2014, like, that was one of my first times in a long time, quote unquote, protesting. And I remember just simply marching with the NAACP, and that experience in itself was a catalyst for, like, my whole, like, cultural and theological reformation. I had been a Christian a long time, but it was during that time that I got face to face to, like, seeing hatred close up. People saying the ratchet stuff, doing the ratchet stuff close up. Nobody got killed. Nobody got significantly hurt. But being in that environment is different. And so you have a lot of people that are sitting behind a computer. You know, I call them these eggheads who will sit back and critique, this is not the way you're supposed to do it. This is not the way you're supposed to do it. Ain't never been in no kind of situation of discomfort for black people ever in their life. So you can hush up with all that. But I get it. You know what I'm saying? You one of those smart people, you one of those journalists, you one of those whatevers, right, who feel like just because you can critique something, you can add substantive value. Not. So save your critique and shove it up your you know what. But it's the truth is, it's frustrating. But I do believe a couple things. Number one, we have to stop putting ourselves in positions to believe that there's an either or approach. Either we fight for justice or we try to have justice through economic empowerment. Either we do this or we do that. It's not true. The fact is, we have been in so many positions of historical and systematic oppression that we need as many avenues of liberation as we can get, like real talk. And one of the things that I wanted to share was I just wanted to share a couple things with you, and I believe that it may help some people. I don't know, but a while ago, I developed a presentation called "I Wonder If Heaven Got a Ghetto." Huge Tupac fan. There's a lot of theology in hip hop, and Tupac kind of like vied for this notion of he asked the question basically: is there a place where black people can go and just rest? Right, the downtrodden, the marginalized, the oppressed. Is there a place where we can go to just be us? And so they got me thinking about some different things, and I started looking into black liberation theology. Really love Cone and what he was talking about. So I put together this presentation, and I'm gonna skip straight to the end. And it's 3 things that I outlined that I believe that we need to do if we're really going to see substantive and significant liberation in black communities in America and abroad. But specifically those who have a heavy hand of colonization, European colonization. So I'll outline a couple things here, right? So the first one is, I think that the first thing that we have to do as black folks is we need a whole reformation of our theology, right? I'm not talking about reform theology. I'm talking about like a whole reshaping of what we know about God. Because for the longest of time, we have really been perpetuating a Eurocentric colonized theology. Think about it. Here in Ghana, even in the U.S., Black America, we got churches on every corner. Research says over 47% of us attend religious services weekly. Yet, our annual income is about $20,000 less than the average income in the United States of America, which is about $55,000. We are oftentimes last on the totem pole when it comes to economic empowerment, financial empowerment, when it comes to education attainment, when it comes to just knowing ourselves, right? We spend $1.2 trillion a year. You feel me? But we still some of the brokest people. So how is it that we got these churches everywhere in our communities? Love God. God is omniscient. You know what I'm saying? He's omnipotent. All these other big words that a lot of people don't understand. And that same God lives in us, and we got the power of the Holy Spirit and all this other kind of stuff. But we ain't got no power to activate and transform our communities. What's up? I'm just asking. How is it that we got churches everywhere, but we still suffering the same conditions as 50, 60, 70 years ago? What's up with that? What are our churches really teaching? And I grew up in the church, all up in the church, the black church in particular, Pentecostal church, grew up in it. And I can tell you from personal experience, and my experience mirrors that of a lot of black folks, which is this. At the end of the day, if it ain't about moral righteousness or piety, for the most part, the black church ain't got nothing to say. Nothing to say. Not all of them, because you got a lot of dope pastors out there doing their dang on thing. I ain't going to shout out none of them because I don't want to make nobody jealous. But you got a lot of dope pastors out there doing their thing. But for the most part, our black churches have failed us. And I really believe it's because it stems from a lack of identity, which is the second point I'm going to get to, right? So the first thing I think that we need a total reformation of our theology. Like the stuff that we teaching is garbage. And I frankly believe that a lot of our churches need to be shut down. Because we really doing more damage than good. No, seriously. You got sometimes terrible relationships between black men and black women, but the church ain't got nothing to say to it except telling the woman that she needs to, do some things on how to catch a man. Child, please. right? Black woman is a cornerstone of the black church. But oftentimes, the least visible, not in positions of leadership, are relegated to very marginalized positions when they do get an opportunity to be in position. But yet, if the black woman left the black church would collapse. So what is we talking about, brother preacher man? What is we talking about? So, listen, I know some of y'all don't get upset. I can really care less. If you get upset, put it in the comments. I can care less. Go write a sophisticated blog about it. I can care less. But it's the honest to God truth. And it's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. And what we have failed to do is recognize the origins of our theology. So, for example, like James Cone, right, in his book says something really dope that's important to remember. Like, Christianity is not the white man's religion. Like, that's inarguable. It's not. But when you look at the institution of the black church, it started and it was birthed in slavery. The black church in America was birthed in slavery, and that has had significant impacts on our sense of what it means to be African and black and to truly value ourselves. So you cannot dismiss white supremacy and white imperialism and colonization from black theology. You cannot. Not without destroying the whole goddamn system. So that kind of perpetual notion of black inferiority and white superiority is oftentimes demonstrated in our theologies in our black churches. One of the primary ways it's demonstrated is our silence on very significant issues. Now, I'm not saying every black church is silent, because when you look in history, the black church has been extremely involved in not just civil rights, but human rights. Extremely involved. But through time, right, we see this notion of this kind of pseudo progression that really hinders our ability to see reality for what it is. Like, we spend so much time trying to integrate that we forgot what it means to really be connected to the greater community and really progress overall black communities. And another thing that goes with that is, because we don't know who we are, like, we oftentimes don't have nothing to say about real issues. These is facts. This ain't my opinion. This is facts. Think about it. How much was the black church talking about reconciliation before the white churches started talking about it in America? I'm waiting. Not every black church, but a lot of us. How many panels did you see black churches putting together talking about a need for racial reconciliation and what the Bible says about justice before the mainstream white churches started doing it? I'm not saying every church, but I'm saying a lot of us. How many of us left black churches and went to quote unquote multicultural churches, which are really just white churches with black and brown faces, because we thought that the black church was uncivilized and could not offer substantive theological value to our lives? But then we got into these majority white spaces and realized that this is just another hegemonic system of white supremacy under, right, theology and Christianity. I'm not saying that all white churches are bad, but I'm just saying, you go to a multicultural church, but you're singing all songs by contemporary Christian artists. How many songs y'all be singing in Spanish? But it's multicultural. How many songs y'all singing in Mandarin or Chinese? But it's multicultural. How many songs y'all singing from traditional African styles of worship? But it's multicultural. Yeah, I'm on the soapbox. So what? I'm just saying, man, we got some issues that need fixing. And another part of it is, man, we got idols, man. We really got some idols in our lives. And two of the primary idols that we have in America, but particularly black America, is materialism and whiteness. We have idolized whiteness in the things that we do and what we say, to how we name our kids. It really is built on a sense of white superiority and black inferiority. I was reading my scriptures the other day, and there's a verse that stood out to me. 2 Kings 5:17. It says that they rejected his decrees and the covenant made with the ancestors and the statutes that he warned them to keep. And this is the part that just jumped out and just slapped me all in my face. He said, they followed worthless idols and they became worthless. I started thinking about this for a moment. It says they followed worthless idols and then they became worthless. So I started thinking about like us as black folks and the things that we idolize. Materialism, whiteness. And I started thinking about how is it that we have a $1.2 trillion spending power, but that the average income of the black household is about $20-something thousand. How is it that we birthed, right? And we kind of maintain hip hop, which is $1 billion industry, exported all around the world. But yet when you look at the top ranks in hip hop, we ain't up there. Worthless. How is it that we be looking fresh? Cuts every week, hair done every week, nails done every week, makeup, everything. It's a new phrase called beating the face, which I think is horrible, but like face beat up every day, right? Multi-billion-dollar industry, hair care and these type of goods, but yet we don't have a majority stake in it. We don't own it. Why is that? Is it because we have been chasing something for so long, right? These idols for so long that we have forfeited our own identity. And because we forfeited our own identity, we don't know who we are, so we don't know how to really assess our value when we get in these situations. I don't know. I'm just observing. I don't know what you think. So we really need to check what we believe, y'all, about God and what we say we believe about God. Because if the God that we serve is the one that allows us to have a church on every corner, but die in poverty, die from health-related illnesses, have nothing to say about social justice, can't start our own institutions to teach our children, I don't really know why that God is too attractive to nobody. I can't blame somebody for saying, why I want your God when you ain't doing nothing. I'm just saying. And I'm a believer. Baptized. All that other kind of stuff. Filled with the Holy Ghost. Speaking in tongues. All that there. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, if it ain't progressing us, what are we doing? And it's the last couple of things I want to say, man, before I wrap up is, so the first thing I think we need to do is really reform our theology. The second thing I think we need to do is, so we need to have an identity restoration. And the second thing is, no, the first thing, is we need to have a theology reformation. And the second thing is we need to have an identity restoration. Like, we have no idea who we are. But for the most part, it's not our fault. When you go through school, the only thing, my son coming out here, the only thing we learn about ourselves is slavery, Martin Luther King, and maybe the young kids now know Barack Obama. But that's about it. We know nothing else about our history. The only thing we know about Africa is lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my. When it comes to people, you see wars, you see conflict. That's it. So we know nothing about ourselves. We are so uneducated. That's why we continually make stupid statements about we can't do nothing until we stop black on black crime. We got to stop killing each other before we do all of that's foolishness. That's silly. That's dumb. When you even say things like black on black crime, you are perpetuating a myth that is was created by white folks. So, but we have no idea who we are. I'm gonna tell you something, like a real story. When I started coming into like my African identity, and I really started understanding the scriptures about who God said I was and who I am, and I really started embracing who I am as an African descendant, it was almost like a blessing and a curse. It was a blessing because it was almost like I gained like this superpower called identity. It was a curse because living in a racialized context like America, when you are a confident, unapologetic, strong black man, you don't take a lot of stuff. So you become a threat. So it's hard for you to just assimilate into systems that you know are oppressive and just accept all kind of microaggressions and stuff like that when you know who you are. So I think that was the curse part of it. But the blessing was, it was like, you know who you are. So it's like can't nobody tell you nothing. Like, you know why you do certain things. But we really need to reform who we are, y'all. And the last thing I'll say is that, like, we really need to have a reconciliation with the diaspora. The diaspora I'm talking about is basically all the places where black people live in the world. So the diaspora is like Africa, Brazil, Jamaica, right? All these places where black people live. Like, we really have to reconnect, and we have to, listen to me. We have to put, when we're writing down all these solutions for the black community, one of them has to be repatriation, which basically means to go back to Africa. One of them has to do that. You have to include repatriation as a viable vehicle of black liberation. You have to. I'm not saying that everybody needs to go. I'm just saying that you have to include repatriation. And let me tell you why. When you think about, like, let's just take one time period in history. Let's just say like early 1900s to like mid 1900s, right? When you had like this great migration of black folks going from the South to like the Midwest and in the North, because the South was ratchet, folks was acting a fool. Both they went Midwest and they went North, right? It was really more of an economic and well-being decision, right? I can't stay down here because I'm more likely to get killed, get lynched and all that, right? Can't get a job, none of that. But if I go up further north, then there's more opportunities. We can argue about the opportunities and blah, 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 but the reality is it just became an economic decision. Like, this ain't popping right here, so I'm moving. So when you look at the overall state of affairs in America, you have to ask yourself, is this popping? My father told me stories about racism and oppression. I have learned through my own experience racism and oppression. I got a 4-year-old son who I've yet to tell the story to. But I've asked myself, like, why should I transfer that generational trauma and pain into his life? Like as long as I'm living as a black man in America, I cannot help but transfer that to him, right? Because in order for him just to survive and navigate certain things, I got to tell him, hey, you can get dreads, but this is what that means. You can wear a hoodie, but this is what that means. You can't be in this neighborhood after this time. If the cops pull you over, so a part of him really has to die in order to really be integrated into society. And right now, my son don't know if he's black or whatever. If you ask him where he's from, he's gonna say I'm from Africa. But my son right now just knows that he's a human being. He exists. And I said, do I want to because of where I live, do I want to transfer that same level of generational pain, hurt, and trauma into his life? No. I think it would be ungodly and absolutely an abomination if I did that. And so we have to think about going back to Africa. So when I say that, I know some of y'all are cringing, right, at the thought of that. But let me break down real quick what it is and what it is not when I say going back to Africa. This is what it is. Right, before I say that, Kwame Nkrumah was the first president of Ghana. He's dead now. But one of the things he said was, he said that the freedom or the liberation of Africa is meaningless unless it is connected with African nations everywhere. And he also said that I am not African because I was born in Africa. I'm African because Africa was born in me. Black folks in America are African. You from Africa. I know folks got all these theories about all of you from Africa, fam. All right? I'm letting you know. I know you don't know that. I know you kind of scared for me to tell you that. You don't like to hear that, but you is. So let me tell you the difference, right? When I talk about going back to Africa, because I know you have a lot of thoughts about like what I'm saying and what it means. Let me tell you what it is real quick and what it is not. This is what it is. Going back to Africa basically means like incorporating the idea that you are becoming a citizen of the world. It means that it is a mental and spiritual and also a geographical relocation to Africa. So it means learning about where you come from, but beyond learning where you come from, really reassessing what you came to know about the continent and where you learned that from, and was it beneficial or was it detrimental to your overall well-being, right? And the last thing is, it's like, yo fam, there's plenty of opportunities here in the continent. Plenty opportunities here in the continent. Plenty opportunities. So going back to Africa doesn't mean, so this is what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that that I'm saying you need to abandon America, burn it down, never look back. No. On the contrary, I'm saying that you create like a dual sense of identity, right? You become a member of the global world. Like, man, I got bugs outside, man. And so it's not like a total abandonment, like, yo, I hate America, I'm never going back. No, fam. It just means that you learn to live somewhere else. So when stuff ever hits the fan, you can chunk the deuce. In the same way where I lived in Indiana, and you had people called snowbirds. So every winter when it was snow, they would go to Florida and in Texas and other warm places. When summertime came, they showed right back up in Indiana. So I'm just saying we need to be able to think on that level of like incorporating Africa. I know I'm saying Africa in general because it's such a big place, over 50 countries and all that. But like really incorporating the idea that it is possible. I just want to spark in your imagination that it's possible. Look, I'm living here. I'm telling you. And I ain't died of malaria. I ain't got AIDS. You see some lions? Ain't no lions around here. Ain't no giraffes finna attack me. You just saw my son outside. You know what I'm saying? He chilling. We chilling. I'm saying you can do it. It's possible. And guess what? I can go back to the U.S. anytime I feel like it, if I want to. I can go wherever else I want to go. You feel what I'm saying? So you got to start thinking about this, man. I think that also it has to be strategic and well planned. I'm not advocating if you've never been outside the U.S. to just pick up and move to go to Africa. That would be stupid. I'm saying you need to take a vision trip. Go with an organization like Any.so 360. We do trips. Or any other organization. Take a vision trip. Check it out. Spend a couple weeks. Ask some questions. Ask about business. Ask about the cost of living. Let me give you an example, yo. I don't know about a bunch of other countries, but I do know Ghana. Do you know that if you made, let's just say, a modest income in America? No, $25,000. You poor in America if you only make $25,000 a year. But let's say you made $25,000 and that income was translated into the Ghanaian currency, which would probably be about maybe 150, 160,000 CDs or something like that. 25,000 American dollars in Ghana will have you living your best life. You'll be living real good. Maybe I'll do another video on like what that means in terms of like rent and all that. But let me put it to you like this. If you had actually you could probably get away with about 20,000. But if you was living in Ghana with 25,000 American dollars a year, not only would that mean that you can live in a really dope house, you could live in a house that is powered by solar power. You don't have to worry about your water ever running out. You can probably have drivers. You can probably have maids, whatever else you wanted, just with 25,000 American dollars. And listen, fresh fruit, foods. You ain't gonna worry about walking down the street, something crazy happening to you with just $25,000. That's all. And you could be living real dope and still travel back to America a couple times a year and still have some savings. Now what? That's real talk. But because here's the thing. My lips all chapped. Here's the thing. Other people are doing it. If you notice what's happening right now in Africa, this is like the third scramble for Africa. Like, you got a bunch of companies fighting for like what's here in Africa. For example, you got Google and Facebook fighting over control over the internet, right? Multi-billion-dollar opportunity. You got Facebook, you got Google trying to in this war of like who's going to basically be the conglomerate that provides internet access to everybody. You also got, look at my notes here. You got China investing billions of dollars. Listen, you got Chinese stadiums and roads everywhere on the whole continent. Billions of dollars every year. Billions of dollars. The NBA is here. They got, I think it's called the Basketball African League. Yeah. You got Nollywood, which is like the African movies, the Nigerian movies. That is one of the largest industries in the world. Multi-billion-dollar industry. So this is what I'm saying. You don't have to come to Africa and live in a hut. If Africa was so... Like, you don't have to come to Africa and live in a hut. I mean, if Africa was so jacked up and so poor, why are countries investing billions of dollars? Why are these major conglomerates fighting over control? Even think about stuff like the solar industry. They estimate that it's like worth over $24 billion here in the continent. All I'm saying is like, yo, African Americans have a spending power of $1.2 trillion a year. What could that do here on the continent? Not even all of it. Because remember, everybody don't need to pack up and leave. We need some doctors. We need some lawyers. We need some frontline workers who will be out there protesting. We need some lawyers who will get them folks out of jail when they are unjustly and wrongly accused. We need some doctors who will give them equitable and fair treatment. We need some plumbers who will go in and do the job without ripping people off. We need some real estate agents and finance. We need all that there. I'm not saying everybody needs to move, but I'm just saying if you get tired of it, there are options. You don't have to die in the land of your oppressors. And contrary to popular belief, our ancestors, not all of our ancestors died so we can live a life of luxury in America. It's not true. I promise you, some of our ancestors died saying, God, one day, let my great-great-great-great-grandchildren return back home. Promise you, some of them prayed that. Maybe you will be the answer to some of our ancestors. I don't know. I mean, those are my thoughts. It's a long video. Probably ain't gonna edit nothing out. I pray that the one or two of you who watch it will just start rethinking your theology, man. Where does stuff come from in your mind that make you believe what you believe and why you don't do certain things? Start rethinking your identity. Who are you? Where you come from? What does that mean for you? And then really start rethinking your connection with the African diaspora. Is there a possibility that you can have a great life for your children's children? The last thing I'll say is this. I heard a speaker say this and it transformed my life. I started crying when I heard it. He said that we have to fight today so that our children's children don't cry the same tears of oppression that we're crying right now. I refuse to let my children's children be telling the same stories of oppression that I'm telling right now. And I believe one of the avenues of our liberation as black people has to include repatriation. We have to think seriously about going back to Africa. We have to. God bless you. Peace.